Hello and welcome to our 19th session, and in this session we are going to continue with our contact form, and before we add functionality to it, we want to add the 3D model of the earth next to it. Let us come back to Visual Studio Code. Now in the terminal I will click npm run dev, and once the application starts, let us launch it, and this is going to launch the application. And here to add the earth, we are going to come into this contact.jsx file which we were working in the last class, and in this we had added one motion div throughout this from the top to the bottom. Okay, and below this we are now going to add another motion div, and this other motion div, motion.div, I will close the tag. And just like in the first case, even for this motion div, we are going to add variants. One thing you have to remember is the kind of animation that we are going to add to this motion div will be similar to the one we added at the top for this contact form. So what we can do is, I will select this variant line which represents the animation. See, I will select this variants line and then right click and copy this. Now move down, and in the new motion div that we created just now, I am now going to paste this variant and I am going to save it. Now only thing that we want to change here is, instead of this sliding from the left, this is now going to slide from the right. I will press space, and I am also going to call a few class name, and the class name we are going to call is, on extra large devices we want the flex to be set to 1, because in that case it should appear one below the other, and in extra large devices also we want the height to set to be auto, and in medium devices MD, height will be set to, in square bracket, 550 pixel and close the square bracket, and later in case of regular devices, height in square bracket it will be 350 pixel and close the flower bracket. After this declaration, inside this now we are going to call our EarthCanvas, and I am going to close this tag and I will save it. Now we have to get this EarthCanvas file ready. So for this I will control click on this, and this is going to open the earth.jsx file. Where is this file present? In components canvas we have this earth.jsx file, and the first component we are going to import is, in flower the bracket I will call this Suspense, and this Suspense is imported from React. I will add a semicolon, and in the next line we are going to import Canvas, because this is the most important component needed to render a 3D scene, and it is coming from React 3 Fiber. Next we are going to import the OrbitControls, and this OrbitControl is coming from at React 3 DREI drive, and along with OrbitControl we are also going to import preload, and also I will add a comma, and finally the most important one, useGLTF, and this is to load external model. And finally after this we are going to import the actual canvas loader, and this canvas loader is coming from, and in inverted comma I will add 2 dots and forward slash, and this is coming from the loader, and I am going to end it with semicolon. Now here let us leave the const earth as it is. We are going to discuss about it later, but first let us create our const earth canvas, and this const earth canvas will be equal to a function. I will add the parenthesis, open close bracket, equals greater than sign, and in the flower bracket I am now going to declare this function, and it starts with a return statement, and in open close regular brackets I am now going to call the canvas component, and this canvas component I will close this tag, and for this canvas component we are now going to add certain properties. So, I will press enter. The first component we are going to call here is the shadows. We are going to add shadows. Then we are going to call this frame loop, and this frame loop will be equal to demand. And then in the next line we are now going to call the component GL, and this GL will be equal to, I will add one more flower bracket inside, and this will be equal to preserve drawing buffer, and this preserve drawing buffer colon, this will be set to true. And then after this we are finally going to add a camera, and right now this camera position I will add a flower bracket and I will keep it as of now empty. And now inside this canvas, the first component we are going to add is suspense, and this suspense I will close the tag, and for this suspense I will just set it correctly and move it down. And what this suspense is going to do is, it is going to perform something until the model gets loaded. And here I am going to call the function fallback, and this fallback method will be equal to, and inside this I am now going to call the CanvasLoader component. And this what it does is, until the model is loaded, this CanvasLoader component will be executed, and once the model is fully loaded, what we are going to get is, for this I am now going to add the component OrbitControls, this tag, and again / and greater than sign, and I am going to close this. What this orbit control is going to do is, interactively we can rotate and control the model. And now for this orbit control we are going to add some properties. The first property we are going to add is, we are going to enable auto rotate, and then we are going to enable zoom, and we are going to set this value in bracket to false, so that we cannot zoom this. And after this, just like in the case of our PC, we are going to set one maximum polar angle, and this maximum polar angle will be equal to math.pi and math.pi divided by 2, and also we are going to add minimum polar angle, and this minimum polar angle will also be equal to math.pi and divided by 2. So, we have this orbit control parameters added now. Finally, we are going to render our model, and the model we are going to render is this earth model, and I will add / and greater than sign to close this. And one more thing here is, below, instead of exporting default earth, we have to actually export earth canvas, and I am going to end it with semicolon and save it. And as of now, the earth model is rendering only the text earth, because if you come above, the earth component is just returning the word earth, and here we have to design our 3D model. And now I will come to the top, and very first thing we want to do is, we have to set our earth model. So, for this I am going to define a constant, and we are going to call it as r, and this will be equal to useGLTF, and now we have to give the path of the model. And for this, in inverted comma, we are going to call period planet, and inside that we are going to call scene.gltf, and finally end this with semicolon. And now if I save it, you are getting some error. And now here let us solve this error later. But now if you come here, see in your folder Satvik 3D profile, in the public we have a folder called planet, and inside this planet we have scene.gltf, and this is the path we are supposed to give. And now just like the last time, now here in the return we are no more returning this just this text, and inside this return statement we are going to call this primitive, and this primitive is again a self closing tag / and greater than sign, and inside this primitive the first thing we are going to add is the object, and this object is equal to now earth dot scene, and once I have added it, I am going to save it, and then I will remove the errors here, and if I refresh the screen and if I just move down above this contact, you are now seeing a small earth rotating over here. We are seeing this earth is very small. I want to make it bigger, so I will use the scale equals to, in flower bracket I am going to type the value 2.5, and if I save it, see this became larger. And apart from this, we are also going to add position y of this model equals to, and in open close flower bracket I will set it to 0, rotation hyphen y of this model equal to 0. So, we have set y rotation to 0 and y position to 0, so that when we drag and rotate it, see this rotates well. See, you are seeing this rotation. I will come down, and here after this GL we had added this camera, and for this camera now we are going to add some properties. The very first property that we add is we are going to set its field of view FOV, and this will be equal to :45, and then I will add a comma. Then I am going to save this to show you what happens, and if I reload the page, when I have set it, you can see it has zoomed. Okay, and after this I am going to set the near value to 0.1 comma, and then far value : to around 200, and I am going to add the comma, and finally I am going to set the position and colon, and in square bracket x will be -4, y will be 3, and z will be 6, and if I save it and then if I again refresh this, now you can see the model is now appearing fine. Now here you can see that if I drag it and on a larger screen, and if I reload it, you can see that the contact and this loads like this. See, we have this loading happening like this. I am going to close this console window. See, it looks so beautiful. So, we have this earth added, and finally the last component that we are left with is the stars. We have to add the stars behind it, and also do not forget we have to add the functionality to our contact form. These two we are going to do it in our next session.